Welcome to the Medicine Man. I'm Dr. Stephen Langer, and we have a unique show today. My guest is Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais, scientist and health pioneer. Dr. Feldenkrais is noted for his work with disabled children as well as adults, and during the body of this show, we'll be seeing how the Feldenkrais method can really make inroads into cerebral palsy, something that traditional medicine has really been unable to touch. Dr. Feldenkrais is a teacher of physicians as well as interested lay people, skilled lay people, and has been giving seminars throughout the United States for the past 8 months. He's been all over the world, authored over 27 books, and it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. Welcome to the Medicine Man.
But I have been in America in 1971 already. So, and every year I visited America and taught. Of course, this is the last stay that you mentioned. But the real important thing is to realize that when I present you now a concrete case of cerebral palsy, what the general idea, how I came to the conclusion that I can help things like that. Because I'm not a medical doctor, and therefore it's through my own experience and thinking that I found a way, an inroad into that damaged brain by anoxia or whatever trouble there was.
Anoxia meaning lack of oxygen.
Lack of oxygen for at the moment of birth, in the process of being born. And the general idea behind it is this, that normal children, it means people who go also through the trauma of birth and their head is squeezed together and they come out. And of course, it's not an easy thing to be born. You're squeezed through a narrow passage, and the labor may last 10 hours and 12 hours and 24 hours. So it's a hard work for the baby. When he comes through, and then somehow he recovers from that, and in a short while, in a few months, he begins to show signs of curiosity, of turning from right to left, from the stomach on his back, and sooner or later, when he's 6, 7, 8 months, he begins to crawl on the floor, and then learns how to, from that, strengthen himself, and makes attempt to stand, and learns to stand. But if one watches, then you will see that even the crawling is a clumsy sort of procedure. In the beginning, there are 3 different ways of crawling, by the way. And they start with the first, and then the second, and then the third. With the third, the last state of crawling is when the child crawls with his right arm and left leg, and then the left arm and the left leg. It's crossed, the right arm and the left leg, and then the left arm and the right leg. That's the last stage. At the beginning, there's one when he pulls with his both arms and just shoves his pelvis on the floor. And the second stage is where he uses the right arm and the right leg, then the left arm and the left leg. It means he oscillates from right to left. Now, all these, he does more than once. He does 50, 100 trials in each. And his way of learning is this. Each one he finds with every new attempt that he has found something which is simpler, easier, until he finds that he was doing that too much and that too little, and then somehow he finds a modicum of movement which to him feels really comfortable. And that's he learns. But the cerebral palsy child is handicapped because he cannot reproduce the same movement twice. He is spastic and cannot use his legs or arms at will. Therefore, his attempts are never really producing something which by any stretch of imagination you could get to a position where you could choose from the different attempts a better one, because they never resembled themselves sufficiently. Now,
and if you want to see a miracle, folks, stay with us. What is the unique Feldenkrais contribution to the treatment of cerebral palsy?
So you see from what I told you before, now my intervention is that I produce a reproducible movement, which the child himself can't do. So I hold him and make a movement which he can see for 10, 15 times exactly the same. And therefore, he has the possibility of learning like other children learn, because he has something which is more or less identical. And in that he can find a slight improvement from one to the other. Therefore, his brain actually catches up to become more or less normal and use the normal procedure of learning. Now, my object is to reproduce such movement that can be repeated for 50, 20, 100 times, which will look almost exactly the same like with a normal child.
So you are re-educating his nervous
Therefore,
system.
I re-educate his nervous system to begin to learn like other children learn normally.
We now have the privilege of watching a film that Moshe Feldenkrais did with young Jonathan Hughes, age 4.5, a victim of cerebral palsy. Watch and see what Dr. Feldenkrais has accomplished.
Now, this is Jonathan. He is 4.5 years old. And look, the relation of me. Look, I talk to the child and not to the mother. It's important to making that kind of relation with the boy to feel that he is the most important subject there, not his mother, and not anybody else. He has cerebral palsy. He can't walk, and you will see he can't speak. And actually, you wouldn't know whether he's brain damaged or what it is, because at 4.5 years he can't do all that. Obviously, he's not a normal child. He has been treated all the time. And you will see he can't sit up straight. You'll see he bends, crouches. He has very weak muscles in the back and no ability to do anything. You see, I put the boy on his back, and I have found that his feet, he has no control over his feet, and you will see in a minute that he has no control over his feet. But there is no hurry. I never push or make the child feel that he is treated, that he is something being done to him. I'll do him all the good I can within the time allotted. This child never stood on his feet, and therefore his brain has never made the patterns of action and reaction to standing on the feet. And he can't do anything. You can see his legs don't obey him, his back doesn't obey him, nothing. Therefore, I put an artificial floor on his feet and try to produce the irritation that would happen if he stood on his feet and were working on an inclined plane, on any other sort of changing ground, so as to form some sort of connections in that brain as if he were actually experiencing normal child's working. Now watch how that floor is applied. It is gentle. It does to the foot the kind of changes that you can see. Now the foot stands as on an inclined plane. And then you turn the inclination until there is a positive response from the nervous system that these irritations have actually altered the organization of the motor cortex. Now, as you can see, now you can bend his legs towards himself, and his arms, if you noted before, look, his arms behaved something in connection with the movement of his legs. Watch, and you will see there's a difference between one arm and the other, and gradually, if you watch now, you will see that I make the response to the movement of the legs equal in both arms. Now, once you get that, you see, can you see he has no back muscles? He can't sit up, he doesn't know how to use the legs that are now a little bit better organized. And then you will see what we do. We move him to the right and slowly make sure that he leans on his elbow, but rationally, that he can do it in order to roll on his back easily, which he can never do, he never did. Look, and you will see, when I move him, look, he can't move the head, he doesn't lean on his elbow. And gradually, he will actually lean consciously on his elbow. You will see that. It takes a few minutes, but you will see him doing that. And therefore, look, and you will see he will be helped. His head will be helped to assume the normal relationship. In other words, help him to form the pattern of rolling to the side and using his leg, you can see, like two normal legs. It's actually astonishing to see that things like that happen so quick. Look, can you see he doesn't use his elbow? And look to the other side, he wouldn't use his elbow either. And gradually you move the head, look, you will see he will become aware how to use the head and actually lean on his elbow. Oh, can you see he turned his head now with his face to the floor. And you will see on the other side he does it already. Now watch and see that now, only about 25 minutes of work, he already will lean on the elbow by himself. Watch there, look. Can you see he leans on the elbow himself like a normal child? Therefore the pattern and what I was talking is actually working.
We've just watched part one of one of the most unique films that I've ever seen, and we will be seeing part two in the next segment. Moshe, that was extraordinary.
Well, it is extraordinary, but quite ordinary, because it happens with every case like that. And the real thing through the film, if you watch, for the following thing, that I am substituting myself for an environment to make the child who has cerebral palsy and has therefore spasticity and unformed joints, who cannot reproduce a movement closely identical to one another, so that he can have some of learning ability. Sometimes he puts his hand to the right and he goes to the left. He doesn't know where it's coming. Now I produce invariant movements and make them as closely resemble one another as what happens with a normal child. And therefore, in a 50 or 100 repetitions, that child finds now the means of learning the way other normal children who have not brain damage and no trouble do actually learn. And so he learns too.
Please stay with us for part two of Jonathan Hughes. We're back with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. Moshe, from what I could gather from what you said the last segment, we are re-educating this child's nervous system.
Of course, but there's a very important thing to note. As he is, he cannot avoid thinking that he has brain damage, because he's unable to learn, his joints are not used, he cannot learn like other children, obviously brain damage. But what sort of brain damage? By minimizing the variability of his actions and make him capable of suddenly realizing that he can learn, he finds himself that his brain damage is minimized. He has actually been able to learn in an hour more than an average child can learn in an hour. And therefore you will see in the end the hilarity, the feeling of joy, of internal thing is extraordinary, immense. And this brain damage is minimized.
We'll now experience part two of Jonathan Hughes.
Now you can see now that we have made some sort of patterns relating the hands to the knees. We actually will be able to produce a crawling movement for the first time in his life. Watch, he begins to move his hand, and you will see I will produce such irritation on his body that he will, and make it for him the first movement. For the first time in his life, he will push forward and actually produce a crawling movement. You see now his hand coordinates with the foot, and now when I move the foot, look, he makes the crawling movement by himself. In other words, you can see that this works beyond any expectation. It's only about 40 minutes now since the beginning. Watch now, you can see he coordinates now the movement of his hand with the knees. And you will see in a minute, a minute, maybe before that. Look, that's it. Knee and hand together, standing, pushing. Look what he does with his left hand. Look, he's trying to crawl with his hand. Now, can you see that movement? That he never done it in his life before. Now watch. I am producing continuously, trying to make the child's movement forward. Look, I push him, pull him back so that he has a greater intent of moving forward. And you will see that his face begins to show extraordinary avidity go forward and smiles. He is not in pain, but watch. And you will see in a few seconds what happens until he goes so much forward. Watch, and catches the head, and then I will pull him until both hands catch it. Watch, now he holds with such power that you can't touch him. Listen to his screaming. Listen to the joy. And then watch, if you only put him back. Look. Can you see the whole thing lasted about an hour and 5 minutes? And that's a major change in the entire organization of that child, a cerebral palsy child for 4 years, who has never been able to do that sort of thing.
Really amazing. Moshe, I cannot believe what I just saw on the screen. That child it was like a miracle.
Yeah, well, it is in a sense a miracle. But it has nothing to do with miracle. The whole thing is improvised. Yes, it's as precise as a scientific experiment, and is repetitive. It can be done 99 times of 100 with the same result.
By Moshe or
by me or by any of my
trainees?
students. The qualified students can do the same thing. Now, the important thing is to see that react on a child like that as a human being, both in his emotional state and his relation to his mother. You give him importance to himself, not talking to his mother, but to him, approaching him. And in the end, you can see that the child feels actually such an immense change and confidence in himself, and in 1 hour, he becomes so friendly that he stretches out to a stranger to embrace him and caress him and actually kiss him in a way, as you have seen yourself.
That was probably the first kiss that he gave anyone.
Or
maybe in
anybody
his
outside.
life.
His mother maybe kissed him. But he, for the first time, a stranger, who he met for the first time for an hour, you can see the tremendous internal satisfaction and really incredible. In that sense, it's miraculous to see how clever the human nervous system is and how clever even a damaged brain can learn.
How many lessons would Jonathan Hughes have to be able to make really, not that he made profound improvements, amazing improvements in an hour, but to make...
children on after that first experience, the way he learned, if I had him for a month daily, I am almost certain that I can put him on his feet and he will stand.
You have mentioned in many of your books that we are using only a small portion of our nervous system. Your principle here is to reactivate or to energize various other parts of the nervous system that we're not using.
That has, in the new book, in the elusive obvious, it's put a bit more in detail to understand. Most people develop their ability almost to their potential endowment in those parts on which they build their life. For instance, a surgeon will build his life on those qualities of his brain which he has developed best. A musician, the same thing. Anybody. You see, the question is that this is done haphazardly, and therefore many other parts, which in fact could improve even the best part of him, are not developed but by chance, and sometimes not at all. Therefore, it's important that normal people should learn awareness the moment in order to get at least the benefit of what they can get, and they wouldn't know even that they didn't have it.
And we will be right back with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. We dealt with a child, or you dealt with a child with cerebral palsy. Will these techniques work for a child with multiple sclerosis or other diseases?
Oh, it will work also with hemiplegia, and it work with muscular dystony or dystrophy, and many hundreds of different, and in accidents, in damage produced by car accidents, in other accidents, in sport accidents. It will work with in every one. You can evoke and encourage and put back into function those vital forces which the person doesn't know even that he has, and he doesn't know how to use them. Once you give him that ability, there is not a person who does not improve. How far he will go, that depends on the circumstances and on the skill of the teacher.
My thanks to you, Dr. Feldenkrais, for an extraordinary experience. My thanks to you and the audience for watching The Medicine Man. Any questions about any of the things that you witnessed here today, kindly write to us at P.O. Box 132, Moraga, California, 94556. Buy Dr. Feldenkrais books, and good health to you all.
Thank you very much.